It's time for the 3304 Sports Podcast. Here are your hosts, David Cunningham and Nick Brown.
Hello and welcome to the 3304 Sports Podcast. I am Nick Brown, and joining me today is the one and only David Cunningham. I guess you could call this an emergency podcast, as the news that we'll be discussing today is only a few days old, or yesterday. I guess it could be an emergency podcast, I guess.
Yeah, I would say it's a pretty important podcast. We'll put it that way.
It is.
In terms of the ACC and just college sports in the fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. ACC is the first to release, I guess, their schedule. And for once, they're actually taking their first steps compared to like the SEC and Pac-12 and all of them. SEC also released their schedule. They released their schedule format. So that's what we'll be diving in. Big news, ACC 2 days ago released a 10-game conference schedule that included room for a +1 out-of-conference game with a bunch of rules, like the team has to follow the ACC guidelines. They got to be in the state, and it's all weird. The big headliner is Notre Dame is in the conference football-wise for the first time in history, and they have the eligibility to participate in the championship game.
Yeah, that's really big news. And you saw a lot of fans aren't happy about that, because a lot of fans are like, well, Notre Dame, they're not a true part of the ACC. They're an independent. They've got their own media rights. But the big thing with the athletic directors, from the articles I've read and the quotes I've read, and this is a quote from Louisville AD Vince Tyra. He said, "I don't think we would have had much of a conversation if Notre Dame wasn't sharing their NBC TV deal." So you've got a TV deal lumped into an already pretty solid ESPN and ACC network deal.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot more money coming in. It's split evenly between all 15 schools. And now you get a chance to really see what it would be like if Notre Dame was a part of the ACC. I think it's going to be fun, just because we've seen Notre Dame play, 8 ACC games every single year, and now they've got a full 10. And I think it'll be cool to see how they match up and play a full ACC schedule.
Mm-hmm. And I think they'll obviously still be really good. Obviously, they're returning Ian Book and a loaded team as well. So they're obviously going to be up at the top. So I think that's what most people are really upset about. It's like, oh, Notre Dame, they're not really part of the ACC, but now all of a sudden they're also good and they can compete and steal a chance for a spot in the ACC title game. Personally, I think it's good for the conference. And if this forces Notre Dame into the ACC fully after this year, and this isn't just a one-time thing, I think that'd be awesome for both conference and Notre Dame in general for the future. And finally, people will get what they want as Notre Dame join a conference. Every time Notre Dame beats a school, everybody, the fans of that school is always like, "Hey, you should join a conference. You're not really blah, blah, blah." So this will make kind of some blue blood fans happy. And then I've seen a lot of backlash against it also. So, I mean, like you said, money coming in for both schools, that's huge, especially in a time where we are lacking money and everything due to this pandemic. And that's just it. We need money coming from anywhere we can for athletic teams. The season starts September 7th. I believe that's a Thursday. That is going to be a Thursday game. And then it will play through December 5th. Championship game, still whether it's going to be decided the 12th or the 19th, depending on, I guess, how the pandemic plays out and how the season plays out. Baseline, each team has 5 home games. I got internet connection. Each team will have 5 home games and 5 away games, and 2 divisions eliminated. So no more Coastal, no more Atlantic. It's kind of nice. It's kind of like basketball now. All of a sudden, everybody kind of plays everybody. And this paves the way for the top 2 ACC winning percentages to compete in the championship game. So you could have 2 Coastal teams, 2 Atlantic teams. It's big. I mean, it's exciting because this is something we've never seen before.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when you said we're getting ready of divisions, I think a lot of people kind of were like, really? And then kind of jumped at the idea, because like basketball, it makes it a free for all, and it's like that in almost every other sport. It's just entire conference, no division, and I think this will be cool because, I mean, you're just playing, you're kind of crisscrossing and playing everybody now, and a lot of it is you're playing teams close to you, which makes sense. But I think it'll make things a lot more interesting because it'll literally, like you said, be like basketball where, there's no, oh, well, first place in the Coastal, first place in the Atlantic. It's just going to be the top two teams. And I think that'll make it a lot more enticing and entertaining because you're going to have a lot more teams vying for those top two spots.
And I mean, it's so crazy if you just, look at the schedules. I mean, Clemson could just slip up once. And if they slip up once, then they could be out of the championship game. If there's an undefeated team and then the team that beat them also didn't lose or lost one game, they still have the head-to-head to Clemson, and that eliminates Clemson from the championship game. Not that that's probably going to happen. As long as Trevor Lawrence is around, ETN's around, they'll probably still be in it, guaranteed. But, I mean, it does make it exciting and gives a chance to more teams that are trying to get to that spot. Again, that's a transition to my big first question is, I guess, who got lucky with their schedule? I think the big headliner is UNC, honestly, and that's what people are pointing out mostly.
Yeah, I would say North Carolina. I mean, they do have Notre Dame, but they don't have Clemson or Louisville, and that's huge. They've got Tech, but I honestly think Clemson got a little bit lucky because the one team that was going to give them trouble in the division this year is Louisville, and they don't have to play Louisville. I think Wake Forest might be the team that took it hardest. They've got Louisville, Clemson, Notre Dame, Tech, Virginia, North Carolina. Wake Forest basically has everybody. The guys you don't want to have. But like you said, North Carolina got pretty lucky. They've got some big time games at home, and then Duke, UVA, and Florida State on the road. But overall, I mean, when you look at it, Tech's not playing Georgia Tech for the first time since they joined the ACC. So that'll be interesting. But overall, yeah, you can go into it more, Nick. But there were some teams that got pretty lucky. I think Tech's schedule is pretty favorable, not too top heavy or anything. They don't have Notre Dame again, but they do have Clemson. So I think it'll be enticing for the fans and make it a lot more entertaining. And they've got some quality home games in Clemson, Miami, North Carolina State, and Virginia.
Yeah. Virginia Tech basically kind of traded Penn State for Clemson in that. And once they lost Penn State, it's like, oh, wait, we'll take the other big school name. No Notre Dame. That's good. You talked about, I guess, poor Wake Forest. I'm not sure what they did to deserve that, but I mean, they got absolutely destroyed in the picks. And I don't know if it was not pure random. They're trying to get schools that are close by to them, but yeah, they took it the hardest. But UNC, I mean, like you said, really their only hard game is Notre Dame, and they get that at home. They also have Tech at home. That's, I guess, their second biggest game, but everything else. Clemson on the road at Tech. Obviously, we can't say really there's home field advantage anymore because no one knows how many fans, if there's going to be any fans at all or what. So they got that. They also they're at Notre Dame. That's going to be another big one, but their home schedule is pretty light with Boston College. They do have Miami at home. That's not going to be easy with Derek King there. But Clemson paving the way, I guess. If there is a college football playoff, it's kind of a favorable schedule to them again. But, I mean, UNC sticking out there, especially with all the high expectations.
Yeah. I would say, honestly, if you look at it, the other two of the other North Carolina schools, Duke and NC State, both lucked out too.
Yeah.
Duke, they've got North Carolina at home and Tech at home. Then they've got Notre Dame and UVA on the road. But besides that, they don't have Clemson. They don't have Louisville. So Duke got pretty lucky. You look at NC State, they don't have Clemson. They don't have Louisville. They've got Florida State and Duke at home, and then they've got Tech, UVA, and UNC on the road. So that may be a little bit more difficult. But those North Carolina schools, man, it seems, besides Wake Forest, it seems like Wake Forest basically got everybody else's schedule, the toughest parts of everybody else's schedule, and the other three North Carolina schools got it easy. But I think it'll make for – it won't be Coastal Division chaos. It'll just be ACC chaos this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is exciting because, I mean, we don't we don't know. Like I said earlier, like UNC could technically not UNC Clemson could technically be eliminated. I mean, say Clemson loses to Notre Dame and then Notre Dame wins out loses just one more game. They have that head-to-head on Clemson, and then UNC sneaks their way in there. Then Clemson's out, or Notre Dame could be out. I mean, it is wide open, and there is a solid 5 to 6 teams that could compete for those top 2 spots. So it'll be exciting to finally see that, and it'll be like basketball when they show like the basketball ACC not rankings, but what am I saying here?
Standings.
Standings. And so I mean, it's going to be like, oh, we need, say, Louisville to lose, which we've never had to worry about, Louisville losing to get into an ACC championship game. But we're like, oh, shoot, say Tech needs Louisville to lose, and then, oh, we need Clemson to really beat Notre Dame this week. So it's going to be interesting as fans, it's really exciting because, like you said, there's more chaos and it's more, I guess, even and fair for other teams to get in. And it's not just Clemson controlling everything.
Well, I think this makes it so, you've got – I mean, Clemson doesn't have that difficult of a schedule. They do go to Tech and to Virginia Tech and to Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
They've got UVA at home, but they avoid North Carolina and Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
But, you've got teams like Georgia Tech who their toughest games, they've got Clemson, Louisville, and Notre Dame at home. That's Georgia Tech's schedule. They don't have Virginia Tech this year. But I think just 10 games, and then you've got your one non-conference game that I'm sure we're going to talk about. But since it's such a minimal schedule, it's like basketball, but it's a much shorter, compact schedule. So you're not going to see teams twice. You're only going to see them once, and you've got to make the most of it. And everybody's going to be fighting to try to get to the top. And I think it'll be really entertaining for the fans because, who knows who's going to come out on top. Obviously, we've got COVID to worry about and figure out, if we're actually going to be able to play those games. And like you said, if fans or how many fans or whatnot are going to be able to watch those games. But I'm glad that there's finally some structure on what maybe we are going to see going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a cool schedule model, at least for this year.
Mm-hmm. I think what everybody was kind of figured what was going to happen was to be like that pod rumor that was going around where you get stuck with like 4 other teams and you play all those teams twice, kind of like the NFL in their divisions also. But I mean, this kind of came out of the blue, especially ever since it was like NCAA's like, we're not going to make a decision until August. And then boom, ACC was like, all right, well, here's our schedule. You know what? Never mind. And so that was kind of nice to have it out of the blue and totally different compared to it's kind of like the Big 12. Big 12 plays everybody, and then you finally have those top 2 teams. So I guess that may have been a model for what they were looking at. But I think overall fans are genuinely pleased with what the outcome of the schedule is looking like. Now the SEC the following day said, all right, we're going to do the exact same thing, 10-game schedule, but no out-of-conference games. So this affects rivalries such as Georgia Tech and Georgia, who haven't played each other, who've played each other every year since 1925. Clemson and South Carolina have played each other every year since 1909. And then like Florida State played every year since 1958. So those games, which are historic, and I know they're kind of lopsided as of lately, but I mean, they're still historic games. And I know if I'm like, say, a South Carolina fan or Florida State fan, I'm like, well, dang, like there goes the big game every year.
Yeah, those are big time rivalry games. And Louisville, Kentucky too. They play every year.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got some of these rivalries where everybody's used to them. And I thought that was honestly really interesting that the ACC says we're going to go with the 10+1 model where we've got 10 conference games and 1 non-conference game. And the non-conference game has to be played in the state of your school. Mm-hmm. So Virginia Tech, for instance, they could play a school out, from a different state, but they would have to play in the state of Virginia. The SEC said, we're just going to go 10 games, no non-conference games. So like you said, big-time shakeup in terms of the rivalry. So no Florida State, no Georgia Tech, no Clemson, South Carolina, no Kentucky, Louisville. And all of a sudden it's for those teams in the ACC that wanted that one non-conference game to be their rival, well, now they got to go searching for another team. So I think it'll make it a little bit more interesting. Obviously, Tech doesn't have to worry about that. They're going to play Virginia. But I think the ACC schools trying to figure out who is going to be that one non-conference game. I heard yesterday talks from Danny Emmerman, who writes for the Daily Orange up at Syracuse, that he said that the AD up there said that they were talking with Liberty. Liberty was originally on Tech's schedule. I'm sure some of the schools are going to try to play Old Dominion because they're local. So it's going to be interesting, but especially it takes away from those rivalries. And I know as college football fans, those games are so fun to watch every year, and it's going to be disappointing not to have them. But also I think it might throw a little bit of chaos our way because now you're not sure what you're going to get with some of these other non-conference teams that you might schedule.
And it still opens the door to like playing someone new. Virginia Tech was going to play Penn State for the first time ever. Well, now suddenly it opens the door to basically kind of anybody who's willing to come to Tech or just stay in the state. So, I mean, Tech could end up just playing ODU and staying down there, or Richmond, or JMU, still obviously a big possibility also. But for the most part, it does open up more possibilities for teams to play new schools like Clemson and South Carolina. They're trapped in that every year. And so Kentucky, Louisville, Florida State, and Georgia Tech, they're trapped in every year. They can't change it. Well, now all of a sudden they're like, well, hey, we can do that. Of course, this does cause a lot more stress on ADs that they probably weren't wanting, but they do. I mean, it still is like, oh, yeah, it's someone new, a fresh face that we don't get to see every year. But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's definitely different, and it kind of makes SEC kind of look like the bad guy. Not that they already are the bad guy in the college football world, but I mean, it's kind of like ACC said, all right, we're going to have this out-of-conference schedule. You can do it. You can have the games in the state, so it saves those rivalries. And then SEC just came out the next day like, nah, never mind, we're not going to do that. So it kind of paints them as a bad conference to ACC fans. But like you said, I think there's more better possibilities out there than just playing a team that you see every year.
Yeah, and so Syracuse might end up playing Liberty. I'm sure Tech is in talks with Liberty. Who knows? Tech was supposed to travel to Middle Tennessee State this year. So no trip to Murfreesboro, obviously. I'm sure they'll put it on the books. And because Penn State was supposed to travel to Blacksburg, and no Big Ten teams are allowed to play anybody out of their conference. So a lot of different scenarios. It'll be weird. UVA and Wake Forest both had Old Dominion on their schedule, so I'm sure we might see the Monarchs play the Cavaliers and the Demon Deacons. But who knows who Tech is going to play? I think it would be interesting if they played Liberty, but I think one of the scenarios you have to look at, and it's written in the ACC's medical guidelines that they released, is each team, because all ACC teams have to follow a certain procedure in terms of when tests must be administered. So if you've got a Saturday game, you've got to administer tests 3 days before. So that's Wednesday. Before a non-conference game, the non-conference team has to follow that for 2 weeks. So who knows if some of these teams that they were going to schedule originally are going to have that amount of testing to be able to administer it properly, to be able to compete with the ACC team. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going into this. I would be interested, honestly, to see Tech play somebody like JMU. I think that'd be a pretty cool game. Play them in lane in front of no fans, and I'm sure everybody in the state of Virginia is going to be watching. So I don't know. There's a whole bunch of different possibilities, but it's a little chaotic. But we've got football for now, so I think everybody's fairly satisfied.
And Big Ten announced they're just going to do their only conference game. Didn't release really what it is. They're just going to say, hey, we're going to play just conference games. Big 12 still hasn't announced anything. Pac-12 hasn't announced anything. I'm sure they'll announce soon. But like you said, we have football on the schedule, at least to kind of look forward to, and that's all that really matters, is that we have that to look forward to in a specific date, September 7th. But I mean, nothing's guaranteed anymore, especially in the world we are right now. Like tomorrow, who knows? Everything could just change, or Duke could be like, actually, we're not going to play football this year. Or it's like and we got to live or look at this like day by day. We can't just obviously can't bank everything on it right now.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. I mean, the ACC did release information about their Olympic sports as well. So teams like field hockey, women's soccer, men's soccer, they have to play a conference minimum 6 games. Volleyball has to play 10. You got cross country. So they released all of that. If you want more information, you can obviously go check out the ACC's website. But I think just having some sort of structure, it's going to help going forward. Obviously, who knows? Everything's changing. Who knows? In the next week, there could be an outbreak of cases in Virginia and the state of Virginia gets shut down. Or there could be, who knows? Mm-hmm. North Carolina, they've got tight restrictions as well. Teams all throughout the ACC, like you said, Duke announced that all upperclassmen, all juniors and seniors are going to be strictly online classes this fall. So who knows how that's going to impact athletics. It's just nobody really knows what's going on. But like you said, to have a structure, it's nice because it feels like some sense of normalcy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think that's what sports fans were looking to, especially obviously the NBA played yesterday, MLB starting up, NHL starting up. But I know there's strictly also a ton of just strictly college football fans or college athletic fans. And finally getting to grasp it, I can look forward to this opening day where there is going to be football or there is going to be volleyball or cross country or something like that. That's good for what we need. We need sports in this country. It's a distraction from the world. And I think that just having like the sense of security that, it's going to happen, or at least plan to be, that's good. And that's what we needed right now.
Yeah. I think this whole pandemic has given everybody a different outlook on sports, just mm-hmm. how much they matter, how helpful they are. It's kind of a way to get away from everything. Mm-hmm. And without it, obviously we've got professional sports back, like you said, Nick, but college sports, I think, are just a different animal just because everybody kind of has their own certain school that they follow, mm-hmm. and the tailgating, the rivalries. It's just a different breed. And, it's nice to have some sort of structure to say that we are going to try to play football in the fall. And if we do play football in the fall, this is what it's going to look like. I think that's good. But obviously there's so many different things that are going into this. Imagine if an outbreak like the Miami Marlins had, mm-hmm. An outbreak like that happens on a college football team, you've got a lot of different things going through the AD's heads, and who knows what's going to happen if you've got, half a team test positive. Stuff like that might pose a threat. Obviously, you can't put student athletes in a bubble, so it makes it a lot more difficult. But to just have a plan and say, this is what we're going to try to do, and we're going to do our best to keep our athletes safe. And I thought the procedures were pretty solid, saying everybody has to get tested 3 days before, but it's nice to have a structure. I keep saying that, but it really is. And I think going forward, obviously we don't know what the future is going to hold, but just to have something saying we are going to be playing football this fall, or as we know it, mm-hmm. I think that's a positive. And I think fans are, can breathe a little bit of sigh relief.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a couple days ago, I guess 2 days ago, right before, like 30 minutes before the ACC released the schedule, star corner for Tech, Caleb Farley, announced that he was going to forego what would have been his final season. He would have been a junior this year, but it was already determined that he was going to probably leave at the end of the year. He's going to skip this year, go to the NFL. Obviously, Dale Sweeney's really good at keeping his guys around for all 4 years somehow, but who knows? Trevor Lawrence obviously is the chosen one. Technically kind of the chosen one quarterback, especially in college football right now. Maybe he skips through it. You're going to see a lot of big names come out. It's Justin Fields for Ohio State or something like that. Like, you're going to see a lot of random big names just skip the season. So, we can't even say, we're going to get Tech's going to get destroyed by Clemson or something like that, because you don't know if Trevor Lawrence or Etienne's going to stay or leave early, so you don't know.
Yeah, I think that's something too. Obviously, like you said, it was like 30 minutes before the ACC released their what they were doing for football. Mm-hmm. Caleb Farley, actually Adam Schefter announces that Caleb Farley is foregoing his final year, and he's going to opt out of this season. He's going to prepare to go to the NFL, and he's projected to be a first-round draft pick. So good for Caleb Farley. But, yeah, we already saw this I know there was a guy at Illinois, but to put it in perspective, Caleb Farley was the first, I would say, big name player that we saw do this. So it really is going to be interesting, because who knows if guys like Hendon Hooker, Trey Turner, maybe they want to sit out. You're never going to know who might want to sit out, who ends up sitting out. Like you said, what if Trevor Lawrence or Travis Etienne want to sit out? Ian Book at Notre Dame. So much talent across the ACC. And I don't know, you might not just see this in football. You might see this carry over to other sports like soccer, where players, or even volleyball, just across the ACC, where players are like, I'm going to take a step back from the game. We saw Syracuse's AD yesterday say that if the players don't want to play, we will, still honor their scholarship. We understand. And I think that's the right move. You say, because it's mostly for health risks, and you can't fault them for trying to stay safe. But who knows who else is going to do it? If Caleb Farley, a first-round draft pick, potentially will opt out of one more year at Virginia Tech, that's a big blow to the Hokies. But like you said, who knows if we're going to see it across the ACC? I'm sure eventually, once we get closer to training camp and it starts back up for the first few weeks, I'm sure some players are just going to say, who knows who it's going to be, but they're going to say, I don't want to, I'm not in for this.
So many what ifs and so many things to, like, we can't predict or anything. There's so many questions just going around, and no consistency, obviously, just in the world in general right now. We can't just bank off of what's going to happen tomorrow, or what's supposed to happen tomorrow. So, there's so many things that could happen between now and, heck, Trevor Lawrence could announce like in 10 minutes, like it's so many, or Duke could announce in like a week saying, oh, we're not playing sports this fall. Like, it is so, there's so many things, possibilities that can just come out of this in general, and we don't know when it's going to happen or when things are going to be announced. So I guess it's just wait and see, and you cross your fingers and pray that there is going to be football that this fall, because I know that in college, especially college students, they just want this, and they don't need, but it is. That's a big thing of college, especially if you go to an FBS football school, and that's just like that's one of the big things of college experience is the football games and athletics in general. So who knows? This is what ACC announced, and I guess we can just get ready to and hopefully prepare. ACC probably announced, I'm going to assume, a schedule here soon about like the dates when games we played. Right now it's just who they're playing, but we'll see what that official schedule comes out. But if you got anything last thing to say,
Yeah, I was just going to say, nobody knows when or where the games are going to be played. Obviously, you've got home games and away games, but who knows if a governor comes out and says we're not allowing him to play, who knows? We still have no idea what the outlook is down the road. Virginia Tech, about 15, 20 minutes, maybe it was 30 minutes ago, announced today on July 31st that they don't think there are going to be that many fans allowed in the stands. That's what they're preparing for. So it doesn't look like there's going to be many fans, but we do have a schedule, and obviously we've got a lot of time in between, when the season's supposed to start, basically a month. It'll start in a month tomorrow, or that's when September starts. So it'll come fast, but as of now, we've got a schedule, and I think everybody is just happy to see some sense of normalcy, see some ACC football schedule, because like you said, it makes students happy, it makes alums happy. Everybody can kind of just say, "Ooh, we might have some football this fall."
That's what it is. We just needed good news for football, because everybody before this was like, well, there's so much uncertainty. We have nothing to grip to right now. Right now, it finally gives something for fans to grasp onto and hold on to and hope for. So we'll see. I've got nothing else to say. If you got one more, and we'll get ready to close this thing out. You got anything else?
I'm good. No, I think we covered everything. It's going to be a wild fall. Hopefully we get back to Blacksburg safely and can take our online classes and meet a couple times. But I don't know, man. I'm fingers crossed we can just keep everybody safe and play this fall.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for tuning in. This has been David Cunningham and Nick Brown, and thank you for tuning in to 3304 Sports. We'll see you later.